Hey guys, welcome to Tyson's Fitness Tips podcast. If you want to lose weight, increase your energy, improve your health and fitness, and look your best, then you have come to the right place. My name is Tyson Brown. I'm a personal trainer, and my job is to help you transform your body by sharing with you the most up-to-date information on health and fitness. I'm going to distill it all down for you into bite-sized actionable steps that you can take immediately to see results quickly. Now, every Tuesday and Thursday, you can expect a brand new episode, which will be a mixture of interviews with top experts from around the world in the fitness space, and as well as solo episodes from myself, sharing with you exactly what action steps you need to take to transform your health, your body, and your life. Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well. This is a podcast I was recently interviewed for my new book coming out, so I thought it'd be really cool to share with you guys because we talk about fitness, but we also talk about business, philosophy, and a whole bunch of other stuff that I really think you're going to enjoy. So it's not just the same old stuff about intermittent fasting, and you should give it a listen. So let's dive into the episode and let me know what you guys think. P.S. Don't forget, I do have that competition going at the moment. So if you want to get a free free copy of my new book, make sure that you share this on Instagram, you tag me in it, and that way you're going to go straight into the draw for the book coming out on 16th of September. All right, let's get into the episode.
Alrighty, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Bare Naked Health Podcast. And on the line today, I have Tyson Brown. Tyson, first question I ask everybody who comes on the show is share with us your health journey up until this point.
Okay, cool. So I guess my health journey started in 2010. I used to do a lot of drugs, drink a lot of alcohol, and I was just living like the fun party life, let's say. And there was just something one day that just kind of clicked in my head. I'm like, you know what? I want to go and pick up girls and I want to look better than what I do now. So I decided to do what all guys do. I went down to the random gym, got a magazine from Men's Fitness Magazine, started following that, and 2 months down the line, there was no change at all. So I was pretty frustrated with that at first, and I was like, what's going on? Couldn't figure it out. So the next thing I thought was, I'm missing the magic supplements. So I went down to the local supplement guy. He gave me a meal plan, and he gave me protein because I thought that was the magic ingredient. And I was like, yeah, this is it. That's what I'm going to do. And then the same thing happened. Another couple of months went by. I started to lose a little bit of weight because he gave me a very, very strict meal plan to follow. Typical like chicken breast, broccoli, brown rice, all those type of things. And I did start to lose weight and I started seeing results, but I kept going back and forth. I kept I'd fall off the wagon, I'd binge eat, and then I'd go back to, gaining a couple of kilos because it just wasn't sustainable in the long run. And I was trying to figure out how people were staying lean all the time while still being able to go out with their friends and family because I was weighing and tracking and measuring all my food, and my family were like, what are you doing? Like, you are becoming obsessive. And I would stress if we would go out for dinner, and I developed an unhealthy relationship with food over time. And then I was spending hours going through the bodybuilding forums, and I happened to come across a nutrition forum, and they talked about tracking your macronutrients. And this is where I kind of fell into the if it fits your macros side of things, and I was like, oh my god, like as long as I track my macros, I can lose weight. And that kind of put me on the opposite end of the spectrum, where I was focusing on trying to eat all the junk food I could while keeping my calories low. And yeah, I was losing weight, but I felt terrible. And then eventually I was able to find this medium by just mucking around a little bit and realizing, hey, I can have the foods I enjoy. Like, I started studying more about nutrition. I took the precision nutrition coaching course, and I realized like vitamins and minerals and foods, they are still so essential for you, but you can still enjoy the food you want to. And that's where I kind of fell into the intermittent fasting approach. I fell into learning more about nutrition, and then that's when I started coaching other people because I didn't want them to go through the struggle of the years that I went through, and they just felt like, it was just like, it felt like a mental head mess up the whole time.
So where have you kind of settled for yourself now with, like, especially the diet? Like, how does your day look, even, if you will?
So I follow the 80-20 approach. 80 to 90% of I always say 90-10, but it always ends up being 80-20 because the higher you aim, the more likely you are to stick to a better achievement, right? If you say like, oh, let's go for 80-20, usually you probably get like 60 or 40, and it's not the best. So I always say I aim for 80-20, and 80% of my food is whole, nutritious food. It's unprocessed, it's unpackaged, it's meat, it's vegetables, it's fruit, it's all those things. And then 20%, so at the moment, I'm eating 2,000 calories a day. So usually 200 to 300 calories, they're just going to be like, fun food. So usually it's a halo top at the end of the day or something just nice like that. But the rest of the day, like, I make sure it's whole and nutritious because, one, it's more filling. 2, I feel better. And 3, like, it's just easier to stay on track when you know that you're putting good food in your body and you feel better.
Well, now how do you get, I think because you brought up a good point too before, like you're saying, okay, it was like in your head so many of these times. Now, how do you, either for yourself or like with clients that you're working with, deal with that other 20%, if you will, like not let that get to you basically?
What exactly do you mean by that? Can you just explain a little bit more?
So you're saying like before it used to be like, oh, if you weren't like dead on with it, like you were completely off, right? Like, and it kind of like would probably freak you out, like almost a head case, you said. But now, how do you for yourself and for your clients tell them like, no, that it is okay to do like 10-20% is okay. It doesn't have to be 100% or absolutely nothing.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Now that is a really good point, because a lot of people, they still have this mentality that you've got to eat clean food. And so when clients come to me, I educate them about what food is made up of first, protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And then it's kind of like an education process where I'll show them the nutrition labels of, like, let's say Halo Top ice cream compared to another source of food. And we just look at, like, okay, look, there's a little bit of protein in here, there's a little bit of fats, and there's a little bit of carbs. And that's what all food is made up of. And I actually start them on the very, very small end. So it might even be like a 95-5 approach. I'm like, look, just have this as a treat and let's see how your body goes. And when they start to see the progress, when they start to go, oh my God, like I'm losing weight, I'm still eating this naughty food, it's like, that's exactly right. And you can have a little bit more. But I'm always diligent. I say you cannot have that 20% unless, number 1, you've hit your protein, and number 2, you're still under your calories for the day. Because no one, like, you shouldn't be sacrificing that 20% of like junk, unclean food if you have low protein, or you're going to go over your calories, because then you're not really following the 80-20.
Yeah, it's not really the best way to start off the days with a bowl of ice cream, I guess.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, too, like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but if you have like, just because you can have junk food, if you start with it at the start of your day, it makes you, like, you get that craving, right? You're like, oh, I want a little bit more, I want a little bit more. And 80-20 can quickly turn around and be like 20% of healthy food for the day and 80% of just junk and crap.
Yeah, it's just that, like, setting yourself up for success for the day. Like, we were just talking a minute before we even got on. It's like, hey, getting up early, like getting going, having like even just like a morning routine where you set yourself up for success. I mean, there's so many different aspects of life that you can look at that for. It doesn't have to be, I mean, just nutrition in the way that we're talking. I mean, it can just be getting ready mentally. It can be getting ready physically, emotionally. Like, all of that comes in, and nutrition is just going to be part of it then too.
Absolutely. And like for me, this is like you're talking about the morning foundation of setting yourself up. Now, I've got my health and fitness in place, and it's not hard for me to go and work out, or it's not hard for me to focus on nutrition, but trying to build up my online personal training business and, writing my book and things like that, that takes effort. So I've got to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success at the start of the day and doing those hard things first, let's say, in this point, and it would be writing, or it would be doing those things that are going to help me move forwards.
All right, so let's dive into the book here a little bit. Like, Ditch the Diet book. First of all, why? Like, everybody talks about, okay, I want to write a book, and it can be such a daunting process because there is so much and you want to share with people. Why did you write this? Like, who is this for?
It's actually funny because when I first ever thought about writing the book, there was like no who's it for, no nothing. I'm like, you know what? I want to write a book. I just want to write one. And so it was probably, it took a year. Like, it started last year. Like, as I started putting it together, then I started thinking about, I'm like, okay, who am I writing this for? And then I thought about one particular client who I had who first came to me, and his name was Joe. And he just like, he had that mentality, right? You've got to do all or nothing. You've got to eat clean. You've got to do all those things. And I'm like, what would I wish to tell him? Like, the way I explained it to him, I'm like, I need to be able to explain this the way that I showed him to other people, because fitness isn't an all-nothing mentality. It's not you're on or you're off. It's integrated with your life. You still should be able to go out and drink with your friends and family. You still shouldn't, you shouldn't have to spend 2 or 3 hours in the gym. You're not training to be a bodybuilder. And so when I started writing it, I'm like, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is who I'm writing it for. And it's like specifically for the person who just thinks, you know what, I want to be healthy and fit, but I don't want to give up, hanging out with my friends on the weekend. I don't want to spend hours in the gym. I have a busy lifestyle, and I don't want to give up the foods I enjoy. You hear about keto, it gets results. You hear about paleo, it gets results. Yeah, sure, that's great. They do get results, but they are not sustainable. So why not be able to have your carbs if you enjoy your pasta, if you enjoy your wine, if you enjoy whatever you like, but still you've just got to put that little bit more extra effort into it. So this is the reason the book comes out, because it's simple, but it's not easy. You know, like all of a sudden you're not going to be like, oh yeah, as soon as I'm not going to diet again. Like you still have to be conscious of what you're putting into your body on a daily basis. But once you start to get those concepts in place, it's going to be so much easier to stick to, as opposed to thinking I can never have bread again. I can never have pasta or whatever those other things are that people are cutting out of their diet. And that's why I decided, it was a year-long journey, and I was just like, I don't know if I'll do it again, to be honest. Like it was like the writing part wasn't hard. It was everything else, right? It was like managing with other people, getting it sorted and formatted, because I was like, oh my God, I did not realize how much is going into this. But I'm so glad it's done and I can get it out there soon.
Yeah, the second you hit like enter and just move one thing down the line, it throws everything else off. Like it really does.
Oh my God. I was like, and like because I gave it, sorry, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I gave it to my, my what would you call it, like publisher type of thing, and she had a look at it. She's was this just like written in a Microsoft Word document and you just kind of entered it? I'm like, yeah, pretty much. She's like, we've got a lot to do with. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, good times.
But I'm with you. Like that's when I do writing. I mean, that's how I do it. Like it's just you just go and go and go, and then you're always going to go back and make it pretty. If you're trying to make it pretty along the way, I mean, it's just like other things. Like I think of like my garden. Like if I try to just keep it pretty all the time, it would never get done. It's just like get the work done, and then you can tidy it all up.
See, I'm like people talk about how they got their strengths and weaknesses. I'm someone who will just like I'm just an action taker, so I'll go and do things, but my attention to detail is very bad. So that doesn't stop me from doing things, but it's just like, okay, Tyson, you got to kind of rein it in a little bit, tidy it up a little bit. Even with my clients, I'm like, let's go. And they're like, what about this bit? I'm like, oh yeah, you're going to need to know about that. So we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and people need to be able to understand that too.
Okay, so I'm curious, what did you, outside of maybe like some of these types of things, like what did you learn putting into this book? Like what were just something when you're writing it where you just kind of went, wow, like either as like something you learned from just like studying things, or something you learned like, wow, that's going to have a profound impact for people?
I think the biggest thing was putting in action steps at the end of every chapter. I liked, because I was like, because like you read a book and you're like, well, what do I kind of do next? So at the end of every chapter, I have a specific task for people to go and do, because when you implement what you read or what you learn, you're more likely to keep it, right? Like you're more likely to keep it in your head. So having that, that's what I was like, you know what? If people can actually go, okay, I read this chapter, here's what I've got to do first. Here's what I've got to do second. Like I've got it laid out very methodically, because when you put that action into place, then you're going to be able to first, like, remember what you learned. Secondly, it's going to have a bigger impact on you, because you're actually seeing the results happen when you put that into place. So I think having the action steps is the big key point. And also, for me, being more clear. What's clear in my head is not clear to someone who I'm trying to teach, because I already have this knowledge. So the big thing was having feedback from other people who could say, hey, I don't understand this bit, or what about this bit, or what about adding in this bit. So it was a very good insight on that side too.
That's really important, is that feedback along the way, I think. And not just necessarily with the book, but like even when you're coaching people too, it's important to ask them for feedback, because you might go and list off, okay, we're going to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And like you go through all these things and they just look at you. They're like, yeah, okay. But have no idea what you said. So it's having that, I think, going forward, especially in this format, because you're not going to necessarily be there to like hold their hand along the way. You need them to be able to get to that and get that understanding without always being able to ask you another question.
Yeah, for sure. And like, yeah, it's a book. They can't just send me a text and be like, hey, what did you mean by this, or whatever it is. I mean, they have ways of contacting me, but people want to know the answer now.
Yeah, that brings out, like, you have to be that much more clear, which is awesome too. Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned in the intro was like you had some like thank yous and stuff. Dan John, how does Dan John fit into this? Because the reason I ask is I think his books are absolutely amazing, and I'm curious if that's where like you kind of tried to take some of his writing, or just how does he speak to you?
Just the way he's a very simplistic person, right? He's one of those people who wants to make it as simple as possible, and he's like, it's kind of like, I don't always think about it from his perspective, but he had a big influence when I first started learning about him, because just the way he lays it out, I'm like, oh, this is exactly what people need to hear. Like, it needs to be as simple as possible to be able to follow it. And one thing that had a big impact when I started training clients was his simple, methodical approach of you want these movements, squat, hinge, push, pull, lunge, twist, like they're the key things. And so that has really helped me just build the foundation of my training too. But yeah, having his books there and just being able to read them and just being like, oh wow, like the way he hey, if you're going to go and do this, and it's just like literally go and do this step and then this step and then this step, and that's exactly what you've got to do. So his writing did have an impact on me. And yeah, I think he's just a very sensational, just a very impactful guy.
I think it'd be incredible. Like, looking back, like, because I don't know if he still does, but I know he was like high school, like teacher coach. Like, could you
Still
imagine having him growing? And that's what I thought. But could you imagine like being in his class when you're in like 11th grade or something? Yeah. That's going to be a wild experience.
I can only imagine. It's great, actually. Yeah, like even like when he talks about coaching his kids, same type of thing. Like, do the things that are going to work and that are going to get you the best results.
End of story.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's simple, it's not sexy, and that's the thing. It's not sexy, and we can't. Like, when people read the workout routines that are in the book, they're not going to be like, oh my god, this is sensational. It's like, no, you train your body 3 or 4 times a week, you do the big basic primary movements, and that's about it. Like, we always look for something new and exciting, but there's not a lot new and exciting that's going to change a lot of things.
And that's an important thing, I think, for people to understand too, is you don't have to go to the gym. You can do other things if you really want to. But the thing is, if you choose that it's going to be the gym, don't try and, like you said, don't try and go above and beyond and do the latest, greatest, craziest thing. It's like the things that have been around for 100 years, for 1,000 years, like they're still the ones that are working the best.
Absolutely. It's like there's a reason people squat. There's a reason people, do the bench press and things like that. It's like they work. So
just actually talking about other people. So now you also have studied under like easy for me to say, Alan Cosgrove, right?
Yep.
What have you learned from him? Like, what have been some of the bigger takeaways? Because I think that, to me at least, my perception is him and Dan John are different with their styles, but I mean, they're still both amazingly effective.
Yes. So the things that I learned from Alan Cosgrove when it comes to training people is the way that, like, his gym is set out. So it's like a very flowy gym. Okay. So you go in there, like, let's say if you were going through a workout today, the gym goes in a circle, and the way the workout routines, you would be following that the whole way through. So it'd be like barbells first, then dumbbells, then anything else, something like that. So the way, he didn't teach me as much training approach as he did teach me about systems for my business, being able to train 2 people together as opposed to 1, because people who train together are going to have more fun. They're going to get better results. It's going to be better for me and more affordable for them. So learning more systems for my business and how I can approach that to my clients. That was the big thing, the big takeaway they got from Alan.
That's, I think, something just about anybody in the fitness industry could take away, is like, you have to get those things, like, just so that you don't burn yourself out. Because you see how many people that become a trainer, become a coach of any sort, and they're there for 6 months, they're there for a year, and it's just like they're gone because they were trying to work 12 hours a day and didn't take all of those other steps to make it both lasting and effective for them and their clients.
You're a trainer and you're a business owner, and you need to be able to put those together. You can't just be a trainer. You've got to think business wise too, because I mean, you might like when I first started, I loved personal training, but I was a terrible business person. Like, I could go in and I could train clients all day, I could talk to people, I could do those things, but I wasn't running my business efficiently. I was, charging people less. I wasn't giving them proper workout routines. I was just doing the things because I didn't know, and so I knew I had to invest in myself as a trainer to learn how to run myself as a business.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
I think it comes back to, so that part of it comes back to like where Dan John is like, yeah, you keep it simple and effective and it still works.
Absolutely.
All right. So you have a podcast of your own as well. Why, maybe not why, what is the difference for you in writing versus speaking with people?
I'm not a good writer. I'm really not the best writer. Like the more I do it every day. I write a Tyson's Fitness tip on my Facebook post, and I do those things. But I really enjoy video for the most part. which I do then turn into audio, which I'll then turn into my podcast, or I'll interview people. But I just enjoy speaking. Like, I just enjoy talking to people because there's that back and forthness, you know? Like, oh, what did you mean by this? Or you got that wrong. And so I can have that conversation with people. And when I'm just writing, it's like me spewing my words out on a page. Sometimes they're misspelled. Sometimes I can't clearly articulate what I want to say onto paper. But I can talk about it. Or like with you, I can kind of take a step back for a second and have a pause and then reword what I want to say, as opposed to when I write, it's just like more of that mental. It's more mentally taxing for me to be able to do that. So I love speaking. I love talking to people all the time, and it's just more fun and engaging for me because I do have that back and forth with other people.
And I think it's important too because, okay, you're only going to reach so many people on one medium.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, everybody learns or wants to learn a little bit differently. Like some people there's going to be video, there's going to be audio, there's going to be written word. Some people want to work with you, like have that physical tactile cueing and stuff. And being able to meet people where they're at to really help them with whatever it is along their health journey is such an important factor. But it's awesome that you're taking those challenges, not just saying like, oh, you know what, I'm not a good writer. Like you could say that, and maybe you weren't the best writer to start, but think like where you've grown from that to this point, really.
Yeah, for sure. And like for me, I actually just like to, like you said, I like to put out things across all media. Like I like doing videos, I like doing podcasts, I just like to create content. And people are always like, how do you create so much? I'm like, just because I've got a big mouth and I've got a lot to say. So I'll just keep putting it out there until people tell me to shut up or they stop following me.
Okay, so putting out a lot of stuff. I think this is a good thing. What's something maybe in like the last 2 years that you've really changed your mind upon as far as health goes?
2 years.
Approximately. I mean, even just any big things where you used to, and I'm not talking maybe like you said, like right when you first started, like a more recent thing, like after you've been educated for a while, like is there any big thing where you're like, you know what, I'm not quite sure why I'm doing that still?
Yeah, probably training fasted. So,
let's dive into this.
I just like to train. Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, so can you give us like where you kind of were on this and like your thought process along the way, like what's changed, why you've changed even?
Yep. So when I first started learning about intermittent fasting, you burn more fat when you're in a fasted state. So I'm like, you know what? I got to train fasted all the time. And now research is coming out where it doesn't matter whether you train fasted or whether you train in a fed state, as long as you're in a calorie deficit, that's what matters the most. And if you're trying to build muscle or maintain muscle and you train in a fasted state and then you don't refeed yourself straight after, you could be potentially either losing muscle mass or not getting the most muscle gains, depending on what your goals are. But for me, I just like to train fasted. Like, I know the research is showing me different, so like my approach has changed. Like logically, I'm like, you know what, this isn't the best thing, but I just enjoy training on an empty stomach. So that's kind of like where my opinion has changed, because a lot of people still ask me like, hey, you know, like I can't train on an empty stomach. I'm like, you don't have to, you know, like I used to tell people, I'm like, no, you're in the fat burning zone. But when the research comes out and shows different, I'm not going to lie to people, and I need to share with them the truth. So like that's probably a big thing that's changed me, I'd say, over the last 8 to 10 months since I've started seeing more and more research proving me wrong. I'm like, well, I can't argue against research.
And part of it comes down to, though, like you said, for different people, some people say one way, some people the other way, and it's like, how do you feel, and are you getting the results that you want?
Yeah.
If you can answer those two in a positive manner, it really doesn't matter what the research says, as long as it's taking you in the direction you want to go.
Absolutely. And I'm a big proponent of intermittent fasting. That's what I advocate. And when people come to me, they go, I can't do it. I'm like, you don't have to do it if you don't want to do it. Like, if you want to try it, I'm all for it, but I'm not forcing that upon anyone. It's just the way that I feel best when I do it. So, okay, if somebody comes to you and says, I do want to do intermittent fasting, how the hell do I start it? Like, yep.
What are like good starting points to do something like that?
So there's 3 different types of intermittent fasting, okay? Most people think about the 16-8 approach, which is like the lean gains method, where you eat in an 8-hour window and then you fast for a 16-hour window. I ask people if that's what they'd prefer. Then there's the 5-2 diet. So 5 days they eat normally, 2 days they severely restrict their calories. And then the third day is doing, the third type of intermittent fasting is doing like one big feeding meal at the end of the day, which is known as like one meal a day type of thing. So I actually first explain to people which sounds the most viable to you. Like, would you rather eat a little bit every day, or would you rather eat normally for 5 days and really restrict yourself for 2 days? Because everyone's got a different personality type. So I let the ball play in their court first, and then I'll work with them. And then we go from there. This didn't work for me. I just get really hungry in the morning, or this happened. I'm like, okay, do you want to change the approach, or do you think it's not going to work for you? Because at the end of the day, like, I can say, no, this is the best way to do it, right? But if it's not going to get you results, then there is no point in you following it, and you should not force a square peg into a circle hole.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, is meeting somebody where they're at, because especially as a coach, like, if you can't go and if you only say that there's going to be one way, like we said before, like if it's only paleo, or if it's only keto, or if it's only this or only that, you're screwed, because you're only going to get somebody who's wants to follow that for that time, and when they don't want to follow it anymore, they're done with you.
You're gone. Exactly.
But that's not helping either of you out either.
Yeah, it's like, people don't, like, I tell people I don't want them to train with me for the rest of their life. I want them to learn the foundational habits that they can go and implement for themselves, because you don't, like, as much as my job is personal training, and my business is solely having clients, at the same time, if I have to have someone who's hanging on for the rest of their life, who has to pay money to have someone give them a workout program, tell them what to eat, then that is like, it's just not sustainable for them or myself. Like, I feel like I'm doing my clients a disservice, and they are doing themselves a disservice, as they have to constantly rely on somebody else to, keep fit and healthy for the rest of their life.
Yeah, it's again, I think a lot of people we keep coming back to is like, things are simple here, and that's a simple way to look at it, but it doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy, because you're going to have to make changes throughout your life to best fit the situation, best fit your goals, best fit a lot of things, and taking that all into account is so important.
Absolutely.
So what, outside of, okay, if we're getting out of nutrition, getting out of fitness for a second, what do you geek out on? What do you really like to either study or just spend your time doing?
See, at the moment, I'm a pretty boring person, to be honest. Like, I really do enjoy the fitness side of things, but I also enjoy learning about business, like learning about different, like, I follow a guy named Gary Vee. Like, I'm obsessed with Gary Vaynerchuk. Just like, learning.
Have you ever heard him speak live?
Yes, he came to Sydney probably about 2 or 3 years ago when I first heard him.
It is just, I just love, like, I enjoy hearing him other times, but there's something about him live in particular where it's just, the energy is absolutely unreal, I feel.
Yeah, and it's like, he's just the way he's so, you said energy, like, I'm just trying to think of the word, he's just so in your face all the time, right? So I really enjoy, studying about business, how I can get better. Coffee, I love coffee, trying different coffees, I'm actually going to try a coffee, like coffee tasting course thing, just to expand my palate. And improv, I'm going to start improv. So that's kind of like what I'm geeking out on at the moment, I guess.
All right, so I want to dive into these a little bit. How do you like your coffee, first of all?
Long, strong, and black, for sure.
And now, okay, so I've never been to Australia. Have you traveled much around the world?
I've been to America twice.
How does the coffee,
terrible,
similar,
no,
different?
It's so different. Like, you come to Australia, you'll get a barista made coffee coming from fresh coffee beans, made like to a specific standard. So when you're going to get that, it's going to be a nice congruent taste. You're going to get a nice strong taste of coffee, right? In America, I find it more watery. It comes from an urn. I actually don't know how long it's been sitting in that thing for a while, but you guys have it more caffeinated. So it's like the half-half. Like, if I want my caffeine hit, like when I was over in New York, all I was doing was just getting one of those big, large coffees, smashing some stevia in there to get it sweet, and that's how I drink, because I couldn't stand drinking it just like out of the urn. But over in Australia, we pride ourselves on coffee. Like, it's very, very, like, a completely different taste. And then because we've got so many different blends and so many different ways they're combined together, so, and the roasts and things like that, medium, dark, light, red, there's a lot of different things that go into coffee, so it's always cool to try different things.
You're not the first Aussie I've heard to say that. That's why I was curious to hear what your thoughts were on it too. And anybody I've ever talked to usually says the same. It's the wateriness of it. Like, there's not that, like, kick in the butt kind of behind it. Even if it's like a light roast or a dark roast, like those are still going to be different, but they should still have like that true coffee flavor to them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it needs, you need to know when you're drinking a coffee, I'm not drinking watery black soot. Like I want to have that strong kick behind it.
All right, now where does improv come in? What's the driving force behind that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Because I want to get better at speaking and just get better at like just on video and things like that. John Goodman actually recommended to me. He goes, "Why don't you try improv?" And I'm like, you know what? I used to really enjoy watching comedy and things like that, and I thought improv would be just a fun thing to try. So I thought, you know what? I've got some spare time on the weekends because it's on a Saturday, so I might as well go spend a couple of hours trying to learn some improv. I just think it's a fun experience to, be able to think on the fly more, improve your creativity, and just have some fun with people.
It's funny you say improv, and I immediately feel like I'm clamming up. Like it gives me almost anxiety to think about it, but at the same time, I've been starting to think about stand-up, trying to do like stand-up comedy. But it's amazing. One of those, they're two very similar things, but you'd say improv, and I'm like, wow, that freaks me out. Stand-up is more of a prepared routine. Like, sure, you have to feed off the audience a little, but you're coming into it. Like, I think I almost might be better off trying something like improv because it's going to make me have to work that much harder at it.
Yeah, go outside of your comfort zone. It'd be fun.
Now, is that part of it for you? Like, do you feel like that would really bring you out of your comfort zone, or do you see it more as that ability to be able to learn like the true improvisation tactics from it?
I think a little bit of both, because I think that the latter of what you said would be more beneficial for me because, if you said, Tyson, you got to go in front of the crowd and talk right now, I really wouldn't be stressed about it. Like I wouldn't be thinking too much about it, and I could probably pull something out of my ass really quickly to speak about. But yeah, I think, but at the same time, I'd be much better at it once I can just practice how I'd go about doing that.
All right, I like it. I can't wait to hear. We're gonna see like on Whose Line Is It Anyway or something. I don't even know if that show's still on. But
I used to watch that so much. That was great.
But that's immediately when you said improv, like that's my automatic thought is Whose Line Is It Anyway.
Yeah, that's very true.
All right, so we've talked about like a bunch of other names before here. So I'm curious, out of either the people we've talked about or just other people, who is in your mastermind, like dead or alive? Who are the 5 people that you just want to be able to like, hey, call up, ask a question, like anytime you have a question?
One of the guys, I've kind of brought these people into my circle in a way. So one person who coaches me is John Romanello. So he is he used to be really big in the fitness industry, but now he's more of taking the turns for writing. So being able to have him on board to be able to mentor me as a trainer, but also become better at writing is one person.
What have you learned about writing from him?
Just proper grammar, to be honest. Because I grew up when we had phones that were like, the 3 buttons at a time. So it'd be like, what are you up to? WATR and then like a T. And I don't write that bad, but I still write not in the right grammatical terms. So being able to practice that a little bit better has been a good thing. And he's always like, Tyson, fix that, do that. And so it's good to have that constant reminder from him to be able to say that.
That's actually a really big deal. And you're right. I hadn't thought about that. Like, there's going to be that like few years of a generation where that's where you grew up. Now, like with smartphones, you have a keyboard on there. You can do voice to text. You could do whatever, and it's so much easier. And/or the words just pop up for you. But that's interesting. Yeah, like you said, you're trying to keep stuff as short as absolutely possible.
Yeah, it was just like. And like when I look at it, like I might even like just skip complete words. Like instead of like, "Hey, what are you up to?" It'd be like, "What are you up to?" It's like just say hello to someone first of all. Just things like that. So being able to practice, that has been good. Who else? We've talked about. I guess like Gary Vee in a way is a mentor to me because he just inspires me to be able to put more effort into. Like I always realize I'm not doing as much as I could be, which is a good reminder. As much as like you've got to take that time to relax for yourself. Take time for yourself, but like he's kind of like that faraway mentor where I'm like, yes, I need to be constantly giving people as much value as possible doing that. So there's him. We talked about Dan.
And I want to touch it because I think the way that you said that was actually should not be understated. always giving people as much value as possible, but you don't have to make it that you only sleep 2 hours a night.
Yes.
Because he doesn't exemplify necessarily the best model of health from that standpoint, but the drive and the passion, and he truly wants people to get the absolute best from everything that he delivers, should never be understated. Like, that is an absolute must. Like, don't put something out. We were talking about content before. You're not going to put something out just to put something out. You want to be able to stand behind that, right? And I think that's something that he is paramount with.
Absolutely. And it's just like, it was very hard because when I was following Gary, like, he's always like, you got to be working around the clock, doing all those things. And I'm like, and I was trying to force myself to do these things that, like, it's just not me, like, I need 7.5 hours of sleep. Okay. After 7 o'clock at night, I have to just calm down a little bit. Like, I've tried doing it before, but I'd wake up with no energy. I'd feel like shit. I'd beat myself up because I wasn't doing the right thing. Like, because I wasn't doing the right things in Gary's eyes. But at the same time, there was one thing he's just like, you've got to do you. And then I read this post by a lady named Margot someone, and she actually wrote about the phantom Gary Vaynerchuk. And like how he's always looming there in the back of your head. Like, you're laying there on like a Saturday night or you're hanging out with friends and he's like, you should be hustling right now, right? And she's like, you've got to understand, like, you've got to think about, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you not willing to sacrifice? And then go from there. And so having that, like, having those parameters in place for me, it's like, okay, I can work on the weekends, but I'm still going to get 8 hours of sleep. I'm going to stop working by 7 o'clock at night. And there are just certain things in my life that I'm going to prioritize over trying to build that business. And so coming to grips with that has been hard, but it's been very, very beneficial for me from a stress point of view.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah. So that was fine.
So who else is in that list? I mean, it doesn't have to be 5, but I'm just curious if there's any big people that just have had that impact that you or that you really appreciate in your life and are really helping you out.
One person who I've really been listening to probably since the start of the year was Jordan Peterson when his book came out, The 12 Rules of...
I haven't read the book.
Yeah.
Tell people a little bit about it, and I think just to give a little bit of context here, please.
I feel like it's for like a younger crowd, but it's just like how to be a good person and how to feel like you have a purpose in life in a way. So, like the fundamental things that he talks about, stand up with your posture right, do good in the world, focus on something that's going to get, like, always focus on doing 1% better than you were yesterday. But just like the way he explains it is very, very interesting from a psychological point of view because he's studied so much psychology, like these things that he teaches you are proven to work, and you will notice that you feel better if you aim to be 1% better than yesterday. And it's not like, oh my God, like I'm going to eat clean for the rest of my life. It's like, okay, yesterday you had, like we talked about 80-20. Yesterday you had 75%. Let's go for 76% today. Or, something very, very small that's going to move the needle because you're here for a long time on the earth. And you're going to constantly be slowly moving forward. You don't want to try and front load everything because, one, you're not going to attain it and be able to keep it, first of all. Secondly, like, what are you going to do for the rest of, like, most people are probably, 40, 50 maybe? They've got another 50 years ahead of them to be doing these things, to be building those good habits. And that's what he talks about, like, be 1% better than yesterday and just keep slowly, gradually increasing by that.
I like that. And it doesn't have to be the biggest step in the world. 1% over a year, 365% better. I mean, just in 1 year. And like you said, take that over a lifetime now. I mean, you should be doing pretty damn well by the end of that.
And that's with everything, right? Like, we're talking about 1% of your health, but like, let's say today you focus on getting 1% better when it comes to writing. Let's say, I'm going to write 150 words yesterday. I'm going to write 151 words yesterday. That's 1% better. You don't have to get 1% on every single thing in your life because that's going to be very, very hard. If you're like, what, today I'm going to get 1% better on my writing. Tomorrow I'm going to get 1% better on my nutrition. As long as you're moving 1% somewhere on the scale of your life, that's what's going to be the best thing.
And I think what people underestimate then too is little wins add up. And it doesn't have to be that win in an exact area, right? So it's like, okay, we're talking nutrition. Well, wins in getting to bed 5 minutes earlier, well, that has carryover now to the next morning. And okay, you got just that little bit extra sleep, or you've built that sleep up over time. It's like now you're not having those sugar cravings first thing in the morning even. So it's like all these things start to snowball. Like if we're talking about health effects, but it could be business. Like you're making those 1% improvements there. I mean, just any and all of the above. And they really do have a profound effect in all other areas of your life too.
Exactly. And that's the thing you just said, like it's that we still go back to that 1%, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to bed at 12 a.m. at the moment. I'm going to go to bed at 10 p.m. It's like, what are you doing? Go to bed at 11:55 because you've got wiggle room there. Like you're clearly doing something for those extra 2 hours, whether it's just plodding around the house, whatever it is, you're still filling those 2 hours with something. So if all of a sudden you've taken 2 hours away, that is very, very hard to achieve. But if you go to bed 5 minutes every night earlier, like let's say for a week you go to 5 minutes, you go to bed at 11:55 and then 11:50 and then 11:45. So in the 6 weeks you've gone to bed 15 minutes earlier, right? But that's 6 weeks out of 52 weeks. Like that's a very small scale. And like maybe it's 8 months from now, but you're going to bed 2 hours earlier, but you're staying in bed and you're constantly going to bed at 10 o'clock now, and you've got that habit into place. It doesn't happen overnight, and you can't have that instant gratification like you can with Uber Eats getting delivered straight to you.
Instant gratification. That how do we get away from like always being focused on instant gratification? Like how do you coach up your clients to help them recognize like you are not going to get the immediate result tonight?
That's so hard because I really haven't figured out a good way to tell them, like to show them that yet. Like I'm currently losing weight at the moment because when my book comes out, I want to do a photo shoot, right? And you got to look good for a photo shoot. So I'm just like, I'm documenting my process and I'm showing them, hey, my scale hasn't moved in 10 days. And then all of a sudden I got like that whoosh factor. And I'm like, you just got to be persistent over time. Like things, like I just keep trying to tell them like it's not going to happen overnight, but I think it's just that repetitiveness of explaining that to people until it kind of gets in their head. Because it's the same thing with me. Like when it comes to business, I'm expecting the same thing for business as people are expecting from their health and fitness, right? I'm like, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and this Instagram post is going to blow up and go crazy and I'm going to become famous overnight. It's like, Tyson, it doesn't happen like that. You know, it's that daily consistent effort. So we all have those areas of our life where we expect like instant gratification. And I think it's just like humans are just impatient, you know?
Yes. Flat out yes. But part of it is, I think, going to, okay, well, we're even talking about like an Instagram post. Like, well, you could look at, in 30 seconds, you could look at least 30 Instagram posts too. And it's tough because if 29 of those are all positive, this is the greatest day of my life, this and that, it's like, it can leave you down. But man, also, it's important to remember, that's a snapshot in somebody's day that they wanted to share online. Like it's going to either probably be the absolute high or the absolute low of their day. You're going to see one or the other. Somebody doesn't just wake up and just say, oh yeah, here I am. Like, no, it's just not going to be this blah whatever. It's going to be something to catch your eye.
Absolutely. And like that's the dichotomy of Instagram. Everyone can look beautiful, you know? Like literally you're just like, I must be the ugliest person on earth at the moment because everyone on here looks fantastic. They're shredded to the bone 24/7. They never have a fat day and all those things. Like, nah, like we just get that, like, it's kind of like we logically know, but emotionally we don't type of thing. As in like, yeah, that's true, but because images can play like such a profound effect on your head, like it can really mentally mess you up.
Listen, let's shift gears here for a second. I'm curious. You said something before, like, okay, even if you're 40 or 50, you probably still have another 40, 50 years to live, right? What is your vision for a healthy future? I mean, for yourself, for your clients, like even for Mother Earth in general, like what are we going to do? How are we going to keep this going in the best way possible?
It's a good question. Like for me, like people just need, I've never actually really thought about like that in the future type of thing. As in like, I know where I want to go and I want to become one of the top fitness influencers in the world because I want Like, I'm seeing diabetes rise. I'm seeing people make bad food choices. I'm seeing people choose the instant gratification of, like, cutting out carbs and things like that. And I want people to have a better educated approach of, like, hey, you can still enjoy the foods. You can still, like, life is meant to be lived, right? And so you should be able to live to 100 years old. Actually, just saying this is coming to my mind now. Like, one thing I think about is when I say to people, I want to live to 110, people look at me like I'm a psycho. They're like, why would you want to live to that age? Because what people's perception of 110 is old, is frail, is they need someone to, pick them up off the toilet and things like that. And I'm like, and my envision of a 110-year-old is like, I'm still going to be walking around. I'm going to be taking care of myself. I'm going to be doing those things and that's why I'm putting those things into place now of, like, lifting weights, taking care of my health and fitness, because I feel like people, we have the potential to live longer. We will live longer, but you want to make sure that when you are living longer, you have the best quality of life you can at any age. If you're 50 years old, you can't be like, well, my life's over. I'm going to be dead in 10 years. It's like, no, you can have another 50 good years ahead of you as long as you start putting in those little daily efforts.
And I agree with you 100%. That's the funny part. But now I've also thought then to myself, well, have people always thought that, like, from the standpoint of, oh, well, even 100 years ago, right? Like, okay, where somebody's saying, like, you know what, I'm going to live to 100 and I'm going to be that one that's healthy, that's happy, that's still vibrant with life. And then I think about it too. Well, if people, or is it just, are more people able to think that, and more people are getting on board with it and, like, truly making those changes? And if we do it as a society, as a culture, and really instill it, why can't it happen? Like, why can't we make that happen?
Yeah, I think you made a good point, but what I just thought when you said that is, like, health and fitness hasn't been around. It's kind of new, like, yeah, sure, we moved around. There was, like, the gymnasiums, before they were gyms, they were actually, like, things you would do, go to the gymnasium to do, like, your rings and the body weights and all those type of things. And I don't think people associated being healthy and fit with, like, living long, I still feel like, because the health fitness industry is still a new thing, and people are going to the gym to exercise, more people are starting to think about how they can live a long and healthier life. But I'm not sure if they actually thought about it back then, just because, back in the, I don't know, let's like the 1700s, life expectancy was shorter because, we didn't have as much food abundance, we weren't as civilized, there was just...
Sanitation was a big part of it too.
Sanitation was a big... Yeah, there was, like, a lot of things going on back then. I'm not too versed on history, so I don't want to talk about stuff and people are like, that's completely wrong, you were so wrong. But, like, when it comes to, like, gyms and health and fitness and things like that, I feel like that's only... I don't know. Like, before the 1970s, before the 1960s, when you think of, like, bodybuilders and stuff like that, there wasn't... Like, I don't know much about the 1940s, do you?
Again, it was around, but, I mean, it was... such a small subculture that you had. Okay, how easy is it for you to just within 5 miles of your house, how many gyms do you have right now, right?
I've got one right across the road, but yeah, I've got heaps.
And that's exactly it, right? Versus if you're talking 60, 70, probably more like 80 years ago, yeah, you would have to drive maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours to even just find something like that too. So just that accessibility to it. And now you're right, like, if it's on every street corner, we're going to keep it in the front of our mind. We're going to be able to do something about it at all times.
Absolutely. And I think, like, even us saying that, like, so many people still don't have it in the back of their mind. Like, still people are just like, oh, I'm never going to step in a gym. Like, they've got this, it's a weird, like, connotation they've got with, like, being healthy and fit, or, there's this body acceptance thing now. There's always going to be people who are going to rally against it too.
And that's fine. And yeah. I think that's part of the beauty of it is, okay, we've been geeking out for 45, 50 minutes, like, on just all of this health, nutrition, fitness. But you know what? Other people might go the exact opposite, and that's cool. But you have to live with those consequences, basically, because that's what they are. I mean, a good, healthy, strong body is a consequence of, well, all the things that you went into it. But you know what? The exact opposite, and having the diabetes and being in trouble when you're 60 years old, I mean, with heart, diabetes, like, I mean, any of these things, well, yeah, those are consequences as well.
Yeah, that's called taking responsibility for everything that happens in your life. Like, you cannot blame external circumstances for the choices that you've made. You can't be like, oh my God, I can't believe I got cancer. Oh, like, I can't believe I got diabetes. Like, you ate poorly for 40 years of your life and you're not expecting to get, like, you know, you're going to blame food companies for, you know, people are suing McDonald's and things like that. It's like, you made the decision to put that food in your mouth. That's
flat
it.
out.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah.
Mic drop, boom, get out of here.
But part of the beauty of it is now, okay, you have a book coming out. You have a podcast. I mean, we're talking on a podcast right now, and that's where it's trying to be able to educate people to get past that. Like you said, you went down, took a guy like your magazines, talked to like the local gym bro or whatever, like getting you all this stuff. Well, no, you've been able to make those advancements and learn from all those things and try to share that with others to really, hey, get this momentum building so that nobody has to go through a lot of those hard times.
Exactly. And I think the big, like, one thing that just baffles me, and I don't know if people are really, you know, like, if they really don't know, but like so many people are like, I don't know what to eat. And it's just like, we're in 2018. If you don't know, like, the junk food is bad for you, if you don't know, you know, fruit is better than sugar, if you don't know, like, just certain things, people know, you know, your mum always told you, eat your vegetables. Like, if you don't know that in 2018, I feel like you're either, one, just lying to yourself, which it could be, or number two, like, come on, it's not going to take, like, it's not like you've been under a rock for the last 10 years and you've not seen anything about nutrition. I get people who maybe, you know, they're younger, they don't know, they're coming up, but like, there's so much information out there now that people know, like, hey, you don't need to drink Coke, you don't need to eat McDonald's at every meal. And yeah, I'm not sure where I feel on that point, because I still will, like, I still help people out and be like, okay, let's start with this. But at the same time, I feel like, are you actually, like, do you really not know what to eat right now? Like, is this like a fact type of thing? Like, sure, they might not know protein sources, carbohydrates, things like that, but it's just like, look, you know that your lunch at McDonald's every single day is not a good choice for you, with Coke and all those things too.
There was something you said in there, and it kind of sparked in my mind, where, I mean, in the U.S., like, we have like we used to have the food pyramid. Now it's like My Plate or something. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm sure the Australian government has something similar.
We copy you guys, so yeah.
But it's, and they're, I don't think that they're the best things in the world, right? Like, there's a lot to be said and a lot that could be changed with them. But at the same time, like, they still talk about food in general on those things. So like, even if you're getting some of the worst advice probably possible, it's still better. It still is telling you not to eat McDonald's. Like, and I think that's very important. Like, even a lot of subpar, just not the best advice in the world, is better than a lot of just those other choices that can be made.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you know, there's the government telling you these things. There are the TV series. Like, have you never watched TV? Like, have you never watched TV in your life? Have you never turned on the radio? Have you never seen a government ad? Like, somewhere along the lines, someone has said this is healthy and this is not. And if you're eating KFC or McDonald's in 2018, you're like, I wonder if this is good for me. It's like, there's a mismatch somewhere. Something's going wrong here, and yeah.
I guess part of it too is it's scary, the ability of brainwashing by some of the larger companies that they know what they're doing. They can do it very well, but almost like it scares me. Like, okay, we talk about this, and I guess for us, we're thinking like it's so simple, but it's still, there's got to be some level of complexity, otherwise it still wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and then there's the big problem is the fitness professionals fighting over all these things. You should do keto. You should go vegan. Meat's the worst thing in the world. And then people start like, this is where I can kind of see where they get confused. Like, I have no, like, you know, do I go keto? Do I go paleo? Do I go vegan? And it's just like, fitness.
And they just throw their arms up in the air.
Yeah, exactly. That's when
they
just think, you know what? That's when they could probably just go, I'm just going to eat McDonald's because I know this is actually, like, they probably know it's unhealthy type of thing, but they're like, you know what? I actually know what, like, I kind of know that I'm doing bad to myself, as opposed to, if I eat meat, am I killing myself? If I eat vegetarian, you know, it's just, like, we get so caught up in the minutia.
You said the fighting. I think the fighting, that's, I hadn't thought about it from that standpoint. I thought about it like just too many different options, but it's not necessarily that they're options because somebody else is hating this and then somebody else is hating this.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
That's why I'm not dogmatic in my approach. Like, I'm like, okay, look, like, I teach intermittent fasting. I don't teach people to cut out their calories. I don't teach people to cut out carbs. But people are like, you know what? I do better on keto. I'm like, that's great. Do keto then. Like, as much as I'm against it, I'm not going to say that you should not do it. I just want to look at something like, I made a post the other day and I said, take a look at what you're doing right now and think about your diet. Can you follow that for the next 4 to 5 years? Because anyone can follow something for 6 to 12 weeks and you might lose weight. That's great. But then what? Like, are you happy with what you're eating on a daily basis, and can you stick to that? Like for me, if I restrict everything, I will go nuts and I'll binge and I'll eat. And eventually I'm going to get fat. But if I can just have that little bit every single day, just that small amount as like a treat for myself, it's like, cool, I can stay on track. I feel good doing that. I don't feel guilty. But some people, they need to do that 100% approach. They're like, you know what? I'm a clean eater. I don't eat any packaged foods. I don't eat gluten. I don't eat any of those things. And I'm like, hey, if you can stick to that for the next 4 years, great, good on you. There are a lot of people out there who do that, but you need to find out what works for you. And if you currently are on a diet and you can't follow that for the next 4 years, don't feel bad. Just find something that's going to work for you. Because, like I said, anyone can lose the weight, but keeping it off, like, I think it's 97% or some ridiculous amount of people who lose weight will put it back on.
Because those lack of sustainable practices.
Yeah, it's a short-term, we're after, like we talked about, we're after that short-term result. And that's great, but it's got to be long-term sustainable.
Yeah, eating is a way of life. It's not a month or 2 month or whatever period. And I think and I really appreciate that. And just in your writing and what you've brought across, that's super important to think about. It's like you have to learn. Like, yeah, you're going to make changes from 1 month to the next, but I mean that's hopefully that 1% that we were talking about getting better every single day.
Exactly, and it's just like, just don't get, like, even though I know you want to lose weight, like I know you, or whether you want to gain muscle, what it is, like, just don't rush it. Like, as much as you want to get there as fast as possible, like, don't rush it, because once you get there, it's great. And if you feel good for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but if you can't keep it, like, that's really in vain. Like, it's a bitch to kind of go, you know what, now I've got to do this all again, or I can't control myself, or, insert whatever problem here. Just take it slow. And that's a reminder to myself, like in business, Tyson, just do what you got to do. Like, I'm not too, like, we all had that, like I said, we all had that impatience in some area of our life. And like, you're just like, hey man, like, just enjoy the ride. You're going to be here. I've got 80 something years left on this earth. So I got plenty of time.
All right. So in those 80 years, where can people find out what you're putting out?
Yeah. Well, right now, I think the best place would be to follow me on Instagram, which is at Tyson the Trainer with 2 R's. If they want to download a free copy of my book, they can just go to tysonbrown.com.au/ditch the diet. So it's the name of the book. So, they can get it there. Or if they, if they have any questions, just send me a DM on Instagram. Because at the end of the day, like we talked about before, put out as much content as possible. If you reach out and you have a question, just ask. Like, don't be afraid to ask people, because I'm going to help you. I'll answer your question, whatever you have.
I appreciate that, Tyson, so very much. And thank you for just sharing the simplicity with which nutrition can and should be for people. And I think they're going to get a lot out of that if they start making those little changes every single day. So thank you again, Tyson.
No worries, dude. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was fun. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Now, I've got a special gift for you. If you want to learn how I managed to lose 10 kilos and keep it off, then I've got the perfect treat for you. I've got a free intermittent fasting cheat sheet that I share on my website that shows you exactly how to diet effortlessly with intermittent fasting and fit it into your busy lifestyle. And more importantly, this is the exact guide that I follow every single day that allowed me to lose 10 kilos of body fat and keep it off 4 years later. So head on over to www.tysonbrown.com.au and pick up your free cheat sheet today and learn how to fit intermittent fasting into your life and diet effortlessly. Once again, that's www.tysonbrown.com.au. Opt in for the free cheat sheet and I'm going to send it straight to your inbox for free. Until next time, speak to you guys then.